Your biggest asset might have just become your biggest liability. The government is talking about changing capital gains tax again, and it's being framed as a solution to housing affordability. But I'm going to be honest with you, I'm really confused about the logic, because this doesn't actually fix the core problem everyone is speaking about. And in some ways, I actually think it's going to make things worse, not just for investors, but for renters as well. But before we keep going, if you are new here, I'm David, I'm a mortgage broker, and I help people all over Australia make smarter property decisions. If you enjoy this kind of content, like the video, hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. Okay, let's rewind for a minute. Capital gains tax is not a new tax. It was introduced in Australia in 1985 to tax profits made from selling investment assets. Think things like property, shares, and businesses. If you made money on the sale of an asset, you needed to pay tax on that gain. Then in 1999, the government introduced the 50% CGT discount for assets held longer than 12 months. The idea was pretty simple. It was to encourage long-term investing, reward people for holding assets, and create stability in the market instead of the constant buying and selling. And whether you agree with it or not, that's been the system we've operated under for over 25 years. But now we're hearing conversations again about reducing that discount or changing how CGT applies to property investors. And it's being positioned as a way to improve housing affordability. But here's where I struggle with it. Housing affordability is not primarily a tax problem, it's a supply problem. Australia has a national goal to build 1.2 million homes over 5 years. That's about 240,000 homes every single year. But we're currently building at about 170,000 a year. That's a huge gap. And when supply falls behind demand, the outcome is pretty predictable. Prices are going to go up, rents go up, and the competition is going to increase. And that's exactly what we're seeing on the ground. So changing tax settings doesn't actually build houses, funny enough, it just changes behaviour. This is the part that often gets overlooked. About 31% of Australians are renters. That's nearly 1 in 3 people. That's not a small group. That's a huge portion of the country that relies on rental supply being readily available. And the majority of that supply comes from our private investors. And now here's the reality. Not everyone is going to own a home, and that's okay. Some are going to rentvest, some won't even earn enough to be able to buy property in general, some move too often to justify the in and out cost of buying a property, but they're still going to need somewhere to live. And that's where investors come in. They provide rental stock, they hold property long term, and they also fund new developments. And yes, of course, they benefit financially, but they also keep the rental market functioning. So what's going to happen if you disincentivize investors? If investing becomes less attractive, fewer people will buy, fewer rentals get created, supply starts to tighten up, competition increases, and then rents start to go up as well. Yes, some investors are going to sell their properties if these CGT changes come into effect. And yes, some first home buyers are going to benefit from that in the short term. But that is a short-term lever. But that doesn't fix the structural issues of not building enough homes. It doesn't protect renters long-term either. But here's my honest take on a broader level over the tax system here. Australians already pay a lot of tax, and most people just want to keep more of what they earn. All systems need tax incentives, not overtaxation. Because when you keep changing the rules mid-game, you create a lot of uncertainty. And uncertainty slows down investment, and when investment slows, supply slows, and that's the exact opposite of what we need right now. If the government wants a larger share of people's gains, there needs to be confidence that that money is actually being used wisely. Because from where a lot of Australians sit, it doesn't always feel that way. We see housing targets missed, we see projects run constantly over budget, we see problems get talked about more often than they're actually solved. So taking more from investors without fixing the supply feels like treating a symptom, not the cause. Now, regardless of any of the policy changes, property has been one of the most consistent long-term assets in Australia for decades. Over the past 30 years, property values have grown roughly 6 to 7% per year on average. It provides housing, it grows over time, and if your income allows it, leverage allows you to build some real wealth. That's why everyday Australians gravitate towards property. It's familiar, it's practical, and historically, it's performed. And personally, if I understood earlier how property actually grew over time, I would have started much sooner. But what I'm seeing right now is people just aren't worried about tax. They're worried about so many other things. What's the right timing to get in the market? What if they make the wrong moves? What about getting stuck in the wrong strategy and buying a property that doesn't actually grow? And they're all fair concerns, because policy changes create noise, and the noise creates hesitation. Of course, the tax matters, but it is absolutely not the most important thing. What matters more is your long-term hold, your structures around your lending, your strategy, and your intent behind property investing. The biggest mistake I see is people just buying for the sake of buying, trusting the first Instagram ad that comes up. There's no plan, there's no direction, and there's absolutely no clear outcome on where they're going to end up. Instead, the better question you need to ask yourself is, what do you actually want long-term? And how do you want to build a strategy around that? Because you can still invest and you can still build real wealth. You just need to do it properly and with some thought. If you've already got a mortgage and you're thinking about investing or trying to figure out your next move in a changing market, structuring things properly matters more than ever right now. This is what I help people with every single day. It's not just getting a loan, but building the right structure around your long-term goals. Because you don't need to know everything, you just need a strategy. If you want to talk through your situation, the link to book is below.